The Black Widow movie is really great. It just could have been so much better. Hello everybody and welcome back to Lifestyle Critic. I hope you're doing well. In this video we are going to be reviewing Black Widow, which is the long-awaited, highly anticipated and highly requested Black Widow solo movie, and it is a really awesome action spy assassin espionage movie. And it is really nice to see the MCU doing something a little bit different. However, on the other hand, you can just see that they're stuffing this movie with so many storylines and so many different characters, and it really could have benefited actually from being more of a Disney Plus show where they really could have expanded upon all of that. And also, I don't know what on earth they were thinking with what they did with Taskmaster, as they made him so different to his comic book counterpart. I'll expand upon this a little bit more in the character section, and I think they also could have made this movie a little bit more poetic, knowing that the Natasha Romanoff character will sacrifice herself in the Endgame movie. But you know, all in all, it is a really enjoyable movie, and I'm going to be breaking it all down for you in this movie review. So the storyline of the Black Widow solo movie is set in between the events of Civil War and Infinity War, and I actually think this is a really clever time to set this movie's timeline, as the audiences are really au fait with what happened in Civil War and Infinity War, and so are able to fill in the blanks in terms of what was the Natasha Romanoff character doing in between these two pivotal moments. And also Kevin Feige and Scarlett Johansson said that they didn't want to do a simple clear and cut prequel, as A, that's too obvious, and B, they also thought this is a really clever time to set this movie, which actually I agree with. Now, in terms of the actual plot, it sees the Natasha Romanoff character reuniting with her adopted Russian family as they all try to take down the Red Room program, which uses chemicals to control the Black Widow soldiers into doing whatever the Dreyfus character wants them to do. And it's also got parallels with the real life Me Too movement, and also has MCU parallels with the Winter Soldier program as well. Now, from a positive point of view, like I said before, I really love the fact that Scarlett Johansson is finally getting her own Black Widow movie, and she just leads it really well. And as the Natasha Romanoff character is so brilliant, it's really great to see more storyline material for this character, and also seeing a little bit more about her past as well. I also absolutely love the fact that there are some Avengers references in this movie. They don't forget the fact that Natasha is part of the Avengers team, and there are loads of hilarious moments where they are referring to that. And also the action sequences are absolutely brilliant in this movie. However, that also leads me into the negatives with this movie, as whilst the action scenes are really great, they could have just done so much more with them, and some of them just feel very light. And when compared to the other solo movies from other characters in the MCU, the action sequences don't really compare that well. Also, this movie could have really benefited from having a longer runtime, or like I said before, had a Disney Plus show dedicated to it, as it's just stuffed with so many different storylines that it really would have benefited from a longer runtime. Also, the final act of this movie I don't think is as great as the final act in other movies. For example, in Captain America and the Winter Soldier, that final act, which does have some parallels with this final act in the Black Widow movie, was so much better, and I just feel like the final act of this movie could have been strengthened so much more. Also, it does feel a little bit bittersweet, of course, as this is the last time that we'll see the Natasha Romanoff character. But you know, this movie isn't broken at all, and it is really strong from a storyline point of view. So when it comes to the cast and characters of Black Widow, I am a little bit mixed, but you know, by and large, they are actually pretty wicked in this film. So let's go through them one by one. So first up, of course, we have Scarlett Johansson, who is back as Natasha Romanoff and Black Widow, and she is just absolutely awesome. We've obviously seen this character quite a lot in the other MCU movies, and she does such a brilliant job in terms of leading this movie. Actually, speaking of that, she does share the leading role with a lot of other characters in this movie, and I think Scarlett Johansson was really generous in allowing the other characters to be built up in this movie. And she just does such an awesome kick-ass job in terms of playing the Black Widow character, and also we find out a lot more about this character, not only from a family point of view, but also what she's done in her past as well, which I think is really interesting. Next up, of course, we have Florence Pugh, who is playing the Yelena Belova character, who is just absolutely hilarious in this movie. It was really nice to see the baton being passed from Natasha to Yelena, who is definitely able to hold her own in this movie as well. This character is also very deep in grief, pain and abuse, as for the majority of her life she has been a soldier, so she's definitely able to be really badass in this movie, but also she can be a little bit childish, as this was the last time that she had true freedom, and she brings a lot of warmth and a lot of energy to this role, and she bounces off Scarlett Johansson, Natasha Romanoff, really, really well. And I think it's really interesting how they do, on the one hand, have some shared family experiences, but then on the other hand, they have some very different experiences based on the lives that they both individually led. So I feel like they blend with each other really, really well, and they decided not to go down the predictable path of having these two characters just fighting with each other all the time, which I think is really, really refreshing as well. Next up, we have David Harbour. He is playing Alexei and the Red Guardian in this movie, and he is basically a Russian version of Captain America, as he also has been injected with the super soldier serum. Now, he's a bit of a laughing stock and a comic relief / comedian type character in this movie, and I just feel like they could have done so much more with him. He's a really big character in the comics, and I know he was imprisoned for the majority of his life, but I just feel like they really could have amplified the Red Guardian aspects of this character a lot more. I know he has some funny questions to Natasha when he asks her if Steve Rogers and Captain America has ever mentioned him or remembers working together with him. Now, I know they've done leader figures in a bit of a twisted way in other mediums. So for example, with Invincible, how they've done it with Omni-Man, and in The Boys with Soldier Boy and with Highlander. So they wanted to do a different interpretation to this character. But like I said, they just could have pushed this character so much more in this movie. Talking about underutilized characters, Taskmaster was really disappointingly underutilized in this movie. Such a brilliant villain in the comics and animation series, and I just feel like this character's got such a cool superpower that was just super underutilized. And also, the Taskmaster character is a little bit like Deadpool in terms of having really funny lingo, but in this movie, the Taskmaster character was totally mute. So you didn't see any of that, which was just hilariously bad. I know the Taskmaster character definitely did have some cool scenes in this movie. They just really could have pushed it so much further. And also, I feel like this character is a little bit like the Ghost character from the second Ant-Man and the Wasp movie in terms of a brilliant villain that was just unfortunately really underutilized in this movie. Next up, we have Rachel Weisz, who's a bit of a mother figure to Yelena and to Natasha, and she's also a former Black Widow herself, and she is definitely the brains and the strategist behind this operation. I think this character in particular would have really benefited from Black Widow being a Disney Plus series, as we could have seen a lot more from this character. But that being said, in terms of what you do see from this character, she is really, really clever in this film. Next up, we have Winstone, who is playing the Dreykov character. He is the very sleazy, evil, controlling leader behind the Red Room program. I feel like this character could have had a few more action sequences and a few more intense scenes in this movie, but we do have Taskmaster for that instead, and you do get to see the evil brains behind the entire operation. And then finally, we have William Hurt in this movie back as Thunderbolt Ross, and he is definitely bringing the consistency from Civil War to the Black Widow film, and it's really hilarious how this character is not able to catch a single widow across this entire movie. So, from a casting character's point of view, like I said before, the vast majority of the characters in this movie are actually pretty awesome. In terms of the visuals in Black Widow, they are very cinematic and really, really cool. I just would have wanted a little bit more from them. Let's start off with the great ones. So first of all, I think the prison escape sequence with the helicopter is really, really cool. And also some of the car chase sequences, especially in the first act, is absolutely brilliant. And also in the first two acts, all of the widows versus the widows are really, really cool as well. I did really like the sky chase sequence and all of the Taskmaster fight sequences. But like I said before, all of these sequences really could have benefited from being a lot longer, especially the sky chase sequence. That is a bit of a first in cinema history. I mean, I know we've seen similar things being done before, but especially for an MCU movie, this could have been absolutely brilliant. But it is pretty short, and also the Taskmaster sequences, they promoted them so much in the trailers, and I just feel like they are really, really great, but they just really could have benefited from being a lot more expanded and a lot more intense, as well as this superpower or electronic tech power is really, really cool, and they could have made a much bigger deal of it for sure. In terms of the third act specifically, it's very CGI heavy, which is fine. Some of the moments are very obviously CGI though. And also in terms of the final act specifically, Natasha Romanoff versus a room full of Black Widows really could have been a lot more intense and really could have been amplified a lot more as well. But it was pretty short and it was cut really, really early on, and I just feel like it really could have benefited as well from being a lot longer. But all in all, the visuals in Black Widow are actually pretty brilliant. In terms of comparing it to other female-led superhero movies, I think this movie is a lot stronger than both of the other two Wonder Woman movies. I think it's pretty much on the same level as the Captain Marvel movie, and I'd also put it on the same level as the first Captain America movie as well. I think tonally it's very similar to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And from an assassin espionage point of view, I think you can definitely compare this movie to Salt, starring Angelina Jolie. And I just absolutely love all of the family scenes in this movie. The scenes with Natasha Romanoff and the other adopted family members are just super brilliant. In terms of themes and topics, I think it's very similar to Cloak and Dagger in terms of kidnapping and women trafficking as well. So from a comparison point of view, I actually think Black Widow is a pretty strong entry. So overall, it's great to finally be able to watch the Black Widow movie. You know, we've been waiting for over a year to be able to watch this film, and you know, whilst it's not perfect, I did really enjoy watching this movie. I think it really could have benefited from a longer runtime so that we could have expanded the storylines a lot more, the characters could have been developed a lot more, the action sequences themselves could have been a bit longer, and also the marking of Natasha Romanoff's passing away and this being her final movie could have also been expanded a little bit more as well. But you know, I feel like there's so much future potential for the characters that they did introduce in terms of their future in the MCU. I think it is a little bit hilarious that there were so many rumours that a big Marvel star is also going to appear in this movie, and I think it's great that they didn't actually include that particular character, as it should be focused solely on the Natasha Romanoff character, just like with WandaVision and with Loki being focused solely on those two particular characters. I wonder if we'll ever see the Natasha Romanoff Black Widow character again. I mean, in the press interviews for this film, Kevin Feige did say that he is hopeful of working together again with Scarlett Johansson in the future. But you know, as far as this solo movie goes, I have to give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. I'd love to hear what you think, so please let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.